Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're completely moving past those tired, cliché stereotypes of vanity to really examine the subtle, everyday behavioral signs of a highly destructive personality pattern. We are looking at a fundamentally different psychological framework here, and trust me, it goes way beyond just taking too many selfies. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. Beyond the Big Ego. To truly wrap our heads around this behavioral pattern, we actually have to start by unlearning, well, almost everything pop culture has ever taught us about it. On one hand, we have this superficial myth of vanity that we see in movies. But on the other hand, the reality is entirely different. A fundamental lack of empathy that leads to severe, real-world relational damage. It's the difference between someone just having a slightly annoying trait and someone having a deeply harmful way of moving through the world. As you'll see, once you truly understand the actual mechanics of it, certain relationships in your life, whether that's with a boss, a family member, or a partner, are going to suddenly make a whole lot more sense. Now, what's really interesting about this is that word wired. This isn't just someone having a bad day or, feeling a little self-absorbed because they're super stressed out at work. No, this is a rigid, underlying psychological wiring where real, genuine empathy is quite literally missing from their operating system. Realizing it's a hardwiring issue is absolutely crucial because it means we can finally stop expecting them to just suddenly change or magically get it. Moving right along to Section 2, craving praise and entitlement. So if that internal empathy is missing, how are they connecting with us? Well, it's often through what our sources describe as the conversation steering wheel. Think about it. Have you ever spoken with someone where no matter what topic gets brought up, they expertly, almost seamlessly steer it right back to themselves? You could be talking about a massive life event of your own, and within 30 seconds, boom, the focus is entirely back on their experiences, their achievements, or even their problems. Attention is literally the fuel their ego requires just to function on a day-to-day basis. And right hand in hand with that constant need for attention is a deep, unwavering sense of entitlement. It's basically an expectation of a permanent VIP pass for mundane, everyday life. And it comes paired with active, visible frustration when normal rules apply to them. Whether it's waiting in a line, following a basic company policy, or simply taking turns in a conversation, they genuinely get agitated when they aren't given exceptions to the rules that everyone else has to follow. And honestly, when that VIP pass is denied, the reaction is never pretty.
Which brings us to Section 3, the empathy illusion. Knowing that their internal wiring is so focused on their own entitlements, what does this actually look like day to day? Because actually, they don't always appear cold and uncaring. On the surface, they can perform empathy incredibly well. They can seem highly caring, attentive, and super engaged. But the reality is highly transactional. They rarely show genuine concern when a situation doesn't benefit them directly. If supporting you gains them social points, status, or praise from others, they will play the part perfectly. But the very second your needs conflict with theirs or offer absolutely zero return on their investment, that surface-level warmth just completely evaporates. So, with all that in mind, I want you to imagine a super common relational friction point for a second. What happens when you give them gentle feedback? Think about a time you tried to delicately bring up an issue with someone who fits this pattern. Maybe you used I statements. Maybe you kept your tone super soft, practically walking on eggshells just to politely request a tiny change in their behavior. What is the inevitable reaction?
Well, the punchline is almost always anger, or completely cold withdrawal. There's zero middle ground here. There is no, oh man, my bad, I'll totally work on that. No. Even the most gentle, constructive feedback is processed by their psychology as a severe, unforgivable attack on their ego. They simply cannot tolerate the implication that they are flawed in any way. So to protect that super fragile self-image, they go on the offensive with intense rage, or they punish you with a freezing, silent withdrawal.
Let's unpack that a bit more in Section 4, reacting to criticism.
So, the crucial point here is that how a person handles accountability tells you pretty much everything about their psychological framework. In this pattern, feedback quite literally equals attack. They cannot process criticism normally. In a healthy mindset, feedback is just information we use for growth. But here, feedback is an existential threat. They equate being wrong with being completely worthless. That triggers this massive reality distortion field that turns any critique into a malicious threat that has to be deflected at all costs. And honestly, this is exactly why you usually end up apologizing for bringing up something that they did wrong to you.
Okay, moving to Section 5, people as props.
Once you grasp that total lack of genuine empathy and the complete inability to tolerate feedback, you really start to see how they utilize the people closest to them. People are not viewed as independent human beings with their own valid needs. Instead, it is deeply, deeply transactional. You are valued for the status, the attention, or just the general usefulness you provide to make their life easier. It's like you are a prop on their stage, and as long as you hit your marks and deliver your lines to make the star look good, everything is totally fine. But what happens when the prop stops being useful?
That leads us right into the climax of this explainer. Section 6. The toxic relationship cycle. When you mix a desperate need for constant praise with a total inability to handle criticism, the ultimate cost is a profound difficulty in maintaining long-term relationships. Because the bonds are based entirely on extraction, true, healthy, long-term stability is almost impossible to sustain. The mask eventually has to slip. The demands for special treatment just become too much, and the constant deflection of blame completely wears the other person down.
And this brilliantly illustrates the highly predictable, honestly chilling three-step timeline that these toxic relationships almost always follow. Step 1, idealize. In the beginning, you provide amazing attention and status, so they put you high up on a pedestal. You are perfect. But nobody can be perfect forever, right? Which leads to step 2, devalue. You eventually offer a piece of feedback, or you simply have a normal human need of your own that inconveniences them. Suddenly, you're flawed. They start criticizing, withdrawing, and punishing you. Finally, step 3, discard. Once you are emotionally depleted and you're no longer that shiny, useful source of praise, they discard you, moving right along to find a brand new prop to begin the cycle all over again.
So, I want to leave you with a very direct question. Does this pattern sound familiar? If you recognize this idealized devalue, discard cycle in your own life, or maybe that constant conversational steering, or that terrifying rage in response to gentle feedback, listen to me. You are not imagining things. You're observing a very predictable psychological wiring in action. The real question is, now that you can clearly see the machinery behind the mask, how will you choose to protect your own empathy? If this hit home for you, drop a comment below saying, "I know someone." And don't forget to hit subscribe for more of our weekly psychology breakdowns. Catch you in the next one.